Why would a mighty Pharaoh truly tremble at something as small as a frog or a speck of dust? In Hebrew, the word for plague carries the sense of a lash, a blow of judgment striking Egypt's pride. Picture it, a nation spiraling into chaos, a lifeline turned to blood, and a sky that collapses into darkness. And still, even after warning, Pharaoh hardens his heart and walks straight toward ruin. So what happens when Egypt's gods prove helpless? And the final blow is about to fall? Stay with me to the end, because the last plague will become one of the most haunting nights in human history. 7 days have passed since the disaster on the Nile, yet the palace remains lit, and Pharaoh still sits there steady on his throne. The heat of Egypt still presses down, and the kingdom still depends on the river to live. Pharaoh still believes his power cannot be shaken. Outside those walls, Israel remains chained to brutal labor, backs bent like long shadows on the sand. In their hearts lives a weariness that has lasted for generations, waiting for a promise, and fearing that promise was nothing more than an echo in the wind. Moses returns no longer the lonely shepherd who once fled in shame. There is something in his eyes now, pain and fire, the wound of a man who ran, and the strength of someone who has heard the voice of God. Beside him stands Aaron, holding a staff like a living sign. They do not come to debate with palace cleverness. They come with a command, "Let my people go." And with it, a warning. If Pharaoh refuses, Egypt will taste forces no throne can control. Pharaoh looks at them the way a ruler looks at an interruption. He has seen wonders, he has heard the threat, but his heart remains locked. And that locked heart opens the way for another storm, not of sand, but of signs. The next day, Aaron lifts his staff over the waters of the Nile, just as God commanded. The river that once lay calm seems to shudder. A strange sound rises, not thunder, but something deeper, like life surging up from the earth itself. And then the frogs appear. At first, only a few jumped frantically along the banks, but within moments they pour in waves, spilling onto the land. They crawl into homes, into bedrooms, up stone steps into the cleanest places of the royal palace. Their croaks blend with panicked footsteps. The air fills with the damp, muddy stench of the river. And the most terrifying part isn't the number of them, it's the helplessness. No one commanded them to come, and no one can command them to leave. Soldiers step back. Servants cover their faces. Frogs hop beneath Pharaoh's feet and even onto the platform of the throne. A king who is used to being served now has to look down and watch the stone floor move as if it's alive. Humiliated, invaded by that relentless croaking, Pharaoh calls for Moses and Aaron. He promises. He says he will let Israel go to worship God if only this plague stops. Moses prays, and the plague ends so suddenly that it feels like cold steel. The frogs die. They are gathered into heaps, and the stench rises heavy as a curtain thrown over the city. Egyptians breathe and gag. The air itself becomes punishment. But when the palace grows quiet again, when the croaking disappears, Pharaoh's promise disappears with it. His heart closes again. Then Aaron strikes the ground with the staff. Not the river this time, the dust. A touch so small it seems harmless, yet the very soil of Egypt turns into gnats. They lift into the air like a living cloud, clinging to skin, sliding into folds of clothing, biting wrists and cheeks, and every place you cannot hide. The buzzing is thin but relentless, like an accusation that will not stop speaking. The elderly grimace. Children cry, even the strong swat at the air in desperation. The magicians try to imitate it, but they cannot. And at last, they are forced to admit what they hate to say. This is the finger of God. But even as his people itch and bleed beneath a sky of insects, Pharaoh does not move. The plagues continue. Swarms of flies come thick and dark, filling the air like a shadow that can fly. They land on food, on faces, on household tools everywhere. The foul odor from the piles of dead frogs still lingers, now stirred up and mixed with human sweat and rising rage. Pharaoh calls Moses again, trying to bargain, sacrifice here in this land. But Moses refuses because obedience is not meant to stay inside the borders of oppression. They must go where God commands, into the wilderness to worship. Pharaoh promises again. The plague withdraws again. And again he swallows his word. Then comes disease upon the livestock. Fields that once rang with the sounds of cattle, sheep, and camels go silent, as if the breath has been cut from them. Crying rises from farms and homes that live by their herds. This is not just economic loss. It is fear spreading like fire. If even the strength of animals can be struck down, what can stand? Still, Pharaoh refuses. God tells Moses and Aaron to take soot from a furnace, black powder from the heart of Egyptian industry, and toss it into the air before Pharaoh. It lifts like ash, then falls like dust. And where it lands, boils erupt on human skin. Arms once raised in pride now curl inward with pain. Faces swell. People avoid looking at one another, terrified of seeing their own ruin reflected in them. Even the palace cannot protect them. Even the cleanest halls cannot keep sickness out. Yet Pharaoh's heart remains stone, as if he would rather suffer than admit he is not divine. After that comes hail, not gentle rain, hail like war. Wind screams through the streets, thunder crashes like battle drums. Frozen stones hammer the earth, shattering crops, snapping trees, and smashing the future that people were counting on for the year. Egypt, so proud of stability, watches tomorrow break apart in real time. Pharaoh calls Moses again. His voice is weaker now. He says he will let the people go. But when the storm stops, when the sky clears, his promise melts like water on sand. Then comes darkness, not an ordinary night. A darkness so thick it feels touchable, like a black curtain swallowing the sun. Egypt, a nation that worships light, is stripped of the very thing it bows to. Inside homes, people cannot see one another's faces. In the streets, footsteps slow, afraid of falling. Voices shrink, breath becomes loud, and in that suffocating dark, everyone understands. There are things heavier than hail, more terrifying than boils, like realizing God can switch off the light of an empire. In the darkness, Pharaoh calls Moses and Aaron once more. He offers a final compromise. Go, worship, take the women and children. But could you leave the livestock behind? Moses will not accept it because worship cannot be offered with half obedience. They must take what is required for sacrifice exactly as God commands. And that is the moment Pharaoh's mask finally breaks. He explodes in rage. He orders Moses out of his sight and threatens him. If Moses ever comes before him again, Moses will die. In that darkness, Pharaoh's power no longer looks like majesty. It looks like panic, the panic of a man cornered by something he cannot control. And Moses stands there like a lamp Egypt did not light. Then he turns to leave, carrying a silence heavy as stone, because he knows this is not the end. When the last bargain is refused, the next plague will no longer feel like a warning. Egypt has seen frogs flood the land, gnats rise from dust, flies swarm the sky, livestock collapse, boils burn flesh, hail shatter harvests, and darkness swallow the sun. But the most terrifying part isn't only what happens to the land. It's what happens inside a human heart so stubborn that it will drag an entire nation into catastrophe just to keep a group of slaves. Moses walks out of the palace into the cold air of that darkness. Night wind slips along stone walls. Far away where Israel lives, there is still light, quiet, steady, like a promise that refuses to go out. And now the confrontation has reached the final edge. This is no longer about a king's pride. It's about the survival of a people. In the next episode, when night falls over Egypt, one last sign will appear, and a strange meal will become the doorway to freedom. And when Pharaoh chases after them, The sea itself will stand before them like a wall. Like and subscribe so you don't miss the next Bible story.